Hey guys, hope you guys had a good week and you traded safely. It was obviously our OPEX week with some FOMC as well. So this week has been fairly tricky. I want to go through a few things today, so I'll go over the high level first and foremost. So I'm going to go over the usual. I'm going to go through the trader stats, looking at the stats for the MNQ account, looking at the trading calendar so you guys can see the winning days and losing days over the course of the week. I want to go over a trade review of specifically today, Friday's price action on OPEX Friday. It will be too much for me to go over every single trade over the course of the week, but I will speak to kind of what I've noticed for myself as far as thought processes goes, as well as how the week has turned out for me. And also sharing some opinions and thought process from conversations I've had with students, as well as just other people on Discord and social media overall. So I'm going to jump right into this right now. And so I'll start off by going over the fact that although yes, it's been a really tough week, which will be shown in the stats as my win rate has kind of lowered to the 70 percentile on this account, but overall we're still shaping up quite nicely. So I think the range what we've seen since the start of this NMQ series dating back to I think a couple months ago now, we've been ranging between the 70 percentile to about 90%, right? And so obviously the ebb and flows are very natural, and I don't think that we as traders should get too caught up in the arbitrary aspect of these stats, but it's just good to know the stats in general, especially if we're trying to backtest strategies. It's important that we understand the probability of those strategies that we have. And so for those who are new following, the whole MNQ series has been all about pure education and sharing what is possible if sized appropriately with discipline and strategy. And I say that because naturally for me, at least for the past, I would say probably 9 months, give or take, I trade minis. I don't really trade micros. But I do know the masses and the students that I work with are going to be trading micro. So I did want to create some form of relevancy that they can find common ground with me on. And so hopefully this journey so far has been helpful for you guys. And so if you guys haven't started yet, you can go back all the way to the first one. I took about 14 days to pass an eval, and it took about, I think, 9 days it was to get the first payout. And right now, I'm pretty close to getting another payout again on this account. I actually technically should have been today, but I didn't realize that on Monday, I was shy of a few dollars in order to make it. And I'll talk about that in a bit when I get the calendar. But that's the purpose of the whole thing that I'm doing right now, right? So every single week, I'm going to do something slightly different to kind of show, and it's kind of like me trying to fast forward the timelines of a trader. Some obviously I see fast forward because for some of this, right, we might be trading a certain way or a certain size for months or maybe even years before we think about sizing up. And I think that's important. I think that's normal. I think many of us often try to get sized in a little too soon and we get burnt from that. And then we kind of reset and recycle all over again. And I talk a lot about this actually with students around the pathways of a day trader and the psychology that surrounds around that, right? But I think all in all, when I started off with the series, it was about three MNQs, passing the eval, three MNQs, getting the first payout. And so for this week, we've been trading five MNQs. And I know normally I would not be sizing up, so to speak, as we go into an OPEX week, but for the sake of the whole series of showing that we're scaling bit by bit, I want to share that. And so I will do something different. I'll talk about that at the very end here, but I will do something for the next week as well. I know I haven't gotten the payout just yet, but I'll just I'll omit this one extra additional day and I want to start something new. And I think just again, fast forwarding for relevancy purposes, right? But anyways, all in all, I think that the stats are still fairly healthy. 70% win rate, pretty decent solid profit factor, right? All in all, again, only trading MNQs. This funded account with TopStep is about $4,300 on the P&L. I'll go over the calendar quickly here. You can see that over course of September, we have had a basically a fairly good winning day streak. I had one losing day here, but every day's been winning, right? And so I talk about this a lot, but just because I've had winning days doesn't necessarily mean that I haven't had losing trades, right? So there are losing trades within these, and those in the Discord will know because I do show them as I go along which ones are winning and which ones are losing, and just it's part of the game, right? But all in all, overall, the week has been pretty good. I mean, I think that the numbers just simply look bigger because, again, I was shooting three MNQs over the course of these weeks here, and I went to five MNQ for this week. So although the dollars are bigger, it doesn't necessarily mean execution was better, it doesn't mean that my wins were better. In theory, if I was holding the same win rate as I did these past weeks here, these dollar figures would be representative of a lot larger of a number. And now, as I talk about that, I am talking about the P&L after the fact. but I don't really focus too much on the P&L when we're in the trades, right? And I think it's important that we understand that process over profits is important in the early days of our trading and as we figure this out. And so I guess as we're kind of here now, I'll talk about this day right here. So for those who don't know, for TopStep, they had actually lowered their minimum requirement for a payout in terms of the dollar figures per day. It used to be 200 per day, now it's 150 per day. And so I actually thought that I was good on the week because if you look at this, it does look like I'm good. But the one thing that I forgot and I didn't realize actually, and this is just again part of my whole busy week as I've been business has been super busy, but also this week was the final week of my mentorship with the students, at least for the education session of it all. I still will be focusing on the one-on-ones with them now post education so that we can spend time together. But it's been a crazy couple weeks of doing mentorships with the cohort while also running a business, while still trying to squeeze in trading where I can, right? And so I forgot, but on this day, this 168 wasn't actually 168 for one trading day. So what this actually was I think it did about $138 or something like that on the New York session on this day. But then when the market opened for Asia on this day later on, I traded Asia and I made a little bit on that. And so that trade actually counts for Tuesday's trading day, as far as top steps go. So I didn't actually hit my 150 this day. So, anyways, very minor technicality, but it is what it is. Not a big deal. I'm not gonna be too focused. And I talked about this over the course of the series for us not to create arbitrary goals for us. If it's gonna take me one extra day to get a payout, then it takes me one extra day. I take my time at it, right? I don't think that that should seep into my Monday trading next week. If I get a loss and it is what it is, then so be it. Then we move on, right? I just want, and again, I want to point that out. Now, with that said, I am going to jump into now the Friday here. So I'm going to pull up the charts here, and I'm going to do a bar by bar replay just to show you the trades that I took today. It's been tough for me. Sorry, I apologize for not being able to get live recordings into it because it has been quite on the go for me. So I right now because TopStep is such a user-friendly platform when it comes to the X program, which by the way, those who don't know, Tradeify has also officially launched their X program as well. Definitely a platform that I recommend. I've left some information in the link in the comment section as well, just so you guys know what promotions are being ran at the moment in time and all that. But anyways, not let's get right into this. So I've already pre-marked the chart, but I'm gonna kind of go over the bar by bar here, just so that you guys can see. So I didn't make it to the screens right off the gate. I got to the screen pretty much right at New York opening, but I don't like to jump into the market without doing a little bit of pre-work first. And so I did have to go through that first and foremost before I even got started with the day. Um, so as you can kind of see here, the blue line here represents the all-time high at the moment, and we got a New York opening print. And so as you can kind of see here, again, as I can here. Okay, perfect. So that our first 2 minute candle on the day was a indecision candle, bearish doji, right? And so as we kind of moved in, again, I wasn't taking any trades at this point. I'm just kind of watching what price action does, chopping around. We made our way up towards the all-time high. And at this point in time, I did really want to short. But while price was getting to this point, I was just finishing on my pre-work, and I don't like I said, I don't want to just jump into a trade. Very valid to have shorted the all-time highs, just because on the larger time frames, it showed a promising setup for us to actually take the shorts. However, because I missed it, I didn't want to push for that too much. But also, as you can kind of see here, I did take an entry for longs here because even though, yes, we put in quite a bearish bar there, it looked like we were trying to hold the high of day opening here. Which again, if you're an orb trader, this would have been like an orb test, essentially, is what this would have been. And it was looking like we were trying to push higher, right? And so, in the same regard that I had a thesis for why we should short the all-time highs, I also had a thesis for longs. And I talked about this actually with my students yesterday, would have been Thursday actually, talking about how in the end of the day, our larger time frames are very bullish right now, right? And so it really made sense for us. And I said there was certain areas that we were looking to pull back to if we were to actually have a pull down and take some clean longs off of. And so, anyways, I just kind of sharing a couple of perspectives. I did take a stab at this, looking to see if we can put in a higher low off the high of day here, and which could be an orb test as well for those who trade the orb. I don't personally trade the orb, but I just reference this because I know some of my students like to trade the orb, so I do put that into perspective. But needless to say, the price action didn't really work out well for me on this one. And so as we continued throughout the day, I did end up getting stopped out there, as highlighted on that candle right there. That was about a 30-point stop loss. So I on what is it? On 5 MNQs, which is what I'm trading right now. That's about $300 that was lost here on this trade, right? And then not too long after that, because we're holding the New York opening again and we're putting failure to go lower candles in, I want to take another stab at longs here again. And again, didn't work out for me. We were putting in lower highs on the day. And again, I think the thesis to short all the all-time high was the cleanest trade. So anyone who caught this move up here, whether you caught the first rejection or you caught the lower potential lower highs or lower highs down, congratulations, right? Like that very, very clean play, all things considered. And yeah, overall, really, really solid setup. But I did take another L on that. So that at this point in time, I've already had two L's, right? And so I remember at this point in time, like, you know what, I got about like half an hour left before I got to leave the house here, and because I had to bring my kid to school. So I had to be very selective about what was coming up next. So I wasn't going to try to fight this trend too much. And when I say fight the trend, I'm not like talking about the larger trend line, but I'm talking about like at the smaller time frames. I don't want to fight this trend. So essentially what I was looking for here was that I want to see if we can hold below the New York opening print, which we did end up doing so. So I took my entry for shorts right here, as I highlighted here, and I was able to capture this move down, and I caught 20 points. Now, it did end up going lower than to 20 points, but a big part for me of why I wanted 20 and not 30, and you might think like, you know, Alan, from our perspective, you were risking 30 before. Why did you change and risk the 20? And I think that this is the part where I want to really highlight this. At some points for here, this is where people would start thinking like, okay, well, I need to make back the money that I lost earlier this morning. So if I'm going to do this, either I'm going to have to double down my size or I'm going to have to raise my target so that I can try to get more out of the market and make up my losses. I don't subscribe to that thought process. I think that in the end of the day, I'm going to trade what the market's presenting me. And so for me, I just felt like throughout my trades, I wasn't getting a lot of follow through in the early days or at the early part of today. And actually, that was one of the themes throughout the week. My first couple trades this week, and it was specifically this week actually, where my first couple trades were failing trades. Almost every day this week, it was like that. And then I would get my wins later on in the day, which normally when I think about my back tested data, that's not normally where I perform best. I don't perform best after the first couple hours. You perform best during the first couple. So for some people who are thinking like, oh, you know, Alan, why if you're, you know, having some losing trades for the first couple trades in the morning for this week, why did you keep doing that? Well, I don't base my strategy and my trading off of just a couple weeks, right? Of course, it's important for us to adapt to market conditions and make adjustments as is, but overall, when I look at the course of the past year's backtested data, I generally do perform best. So I don't want to deviate from the path of my long-term success just because if we're having some difficulties and changes in the short term, right? So I just want to just highlight that. But I did change my target because I'm like, you know what? I think based on the market conditions, I'm going to have a higher probability here with 20 points versus 30 points, which is why I shifted to a 20-point model. So even though, yes, over here, people can look at this and be like, man, I'm going to FOMO. I should have kept it at 30 points. I would have made my money back. Again, not the point. I trade the charts, right? And so I'm obviously I was content too because this candle right here would have made me think like, oh man, are we gonna double bottom here and keep pushing forward, right? Like I didn't know, right? So anyways, I was content with that. That was my first win. So at this point in time, I've taken three trades and I've lost two and I've won one. And so again, like I said, normally if I was like trading for like 30 points, 60 point, 90 point trims, I would probably only do about one or two trades and usually kind of would just stop with that. But because I had the scout mentality with it being OPEX Friday, I was more open to taking a few more trades, especially if the time permitted for me to do so. As we went throughout the day, this Globex opening print, which I reference quite often in my trading, acted as a very strong support here. And so I entered longs here right at that bar as we held the Globex opening print. And again, I took my 20 points here. And then at this point in time, I left. And so, you know, as much as I want to hold it for longer, at this point in time, it was about 8:42. I had to get my kid to school at 9. Now we're not too far away, so it's not that big a deal, but I need to get him to school. And so for me, that was my priority. I don't like managing a trade while I'm doing drop-offs just because I don't want to be absent mentally with my kid. I want to be there for him 100%, not just physically, but mentally as well. So anyways, I cut my trade short. And again, I can see afterwards, right, where some people here would probably FOMO a lot because guess what happened, right? Like that entry I got was the entry that I was waiting for. That was the key entry, right? And so you can see later on in the chart that this is actually where we ended up just going upwards. We never came back down after this, right? And so you may look back at this and be like, oh my goodness, like now I'm tilting. Now I'm FOMOing, right? I feel so shitty. I should have held it longer. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. I think in the end of the day, I know why. Upon my discipline and my rules, I did what I did because it made sense and it's a sustainable behavior that I use in the long term to be successful. So I'm not going to FOMO on this all too much. I'm just happy that I had the right idea, the entry worked, and so be it, right? But again, a big part of the reason why I also didn't really want to hold too much, especially if I was leaving, was because I didn't know if we were going to put in a lower high here and continue downwards, or if we were going to reject the New York opening print again and continue downwards, right? So, anyways, those are some reasons why I didn't as well, on top of my time frame and all that. But at this point in time now, I've gained back, right? I've gained about 40 points out of the 60 point I lost. So now I'm down 20 points on the day. Now I'm talking about points right now. I don't want to talk about the dollars too much because I think points are the most relevant to all traders, whether you trade micros or minis. It's the most relevant for all of us. Okay. Because anyone who trades 20 minis and makes $1,000 isn't that really big of a deal in comparison to someone who makes $1,000 trading micros. So I'm sure you guys get that. Later on throughout the day, I managed to, as I finished my one of my first meetings, I came in here and I managed to take a trade over here actually, which was a short entry, and I shorted right here. And a big part of the reason why that I wanted to short here was because we were actually consolidating well here, and the candles were forming in such a way that actually gave me the indication that it was worth taking a stab at shorts, and especially if it's for a pullback, which is what I was looking for. For again, why 20 points? I wasn't looking for a pull all the way down. I was just looking to see if we can even just touch in this area here, which we did end up getting on the chart right there, right? So I got my 20 points right there. And then later on in the day, I basically had one more trade left. And so at this point in time, I've made back the 20 points. So I'm break even on the day at this point, right? And so I stopped it here. I had a meeting throughout the day here. So I kind of just let the charts play out. I didn't really do anything. I told the chat and the Discord that I would check back during power hour, and I did, which as you can see the charts, we kind of just consolidated. I really didn't miss much in this area. But as we came in here, as we were testing, this is where I took my entry, and that's where I took my exit. And so, kind of what I was essentially looking for was that, again, like we said, larger time frames, we were very bullish, and we were holding above the previous all-time highs, which was like before we actually broke above. And so the moment we kind of put this in and we set this in, I took this as a signal for us to take longs to break out of the break out of this area. And so this is essentially the play of a test of resistance turn support. So we had resistance and we flipped support with momentum here. I took that and took my 20-point scalp and I called it a day. And that's essentially how I ended off the day that I did. And I called it. I didn't push it any further than that. Again, it's OPEX Friday. I really didn't want to push the envelope any further than that, but price was really good. I mean, had I held, yeah, I could have caught a pretty solid move to the upside, all things considered, but I'm not looking to catch every single trade. And sometimes you have to also ask yourself, based on your strategy, was it a trade or was it just a move, right? And so I think it's important for us to understand that as well. So, anyways, this was kind of the whole trade thought process around what I did and how I got to where I am with the account today. What I'm looking for as we go into next week, charts are looking very strong on the NQ right now. I don't like to predict and try to anticipate what's happening too much. I will be prepared for either a bearish sentiment case or a bullish sentiment case as we go into next week. Overall, I am bullish, but we'll let the charts tell us what it wants to do when we open up during the Globex session on Sunday evening for me. And so in terms of what I'm going to change up for moving on to next week is I have had my TopStep account for quite some time. I haven't traded them much, really pretty much ever since I was in Asia in April-ish, around that period in time, where I was on my hot streak with TopStep for about 4 weeks back to back. I kind of took a halt and pause on it for a multitude of reasons. Won't go into too much details of that at this time, but I was also learning to trial Apex, which is, again, that was part of my Apex video that I posted on YouTube. That's where I first started trading Apex was back in May, and then in August, a few weeks back, I guess it's almost a month ago now, it's where I got my $80,000 payout off 150K account that I had bought, right? So again, if you're interested, watch the video. I posted that already. Anyways, with that said, though, going into next week, the thing that I will adjust is I'm not going to be sizing up my MNQs. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fast forward a little bit and imagine that if I was a trader, now I've been trading for a few months or a year or whatever it may be, maybe now I feel confident. I want to start copy trading, right? With the same size. And so those who are following new, I don't copy trade. It's really not my cup of tea. I know historically, it doesn't bode well for me psychologically. I tend to struggle mentally, and I tilt often. And a big part of that's because I trade minis, right? And so when the damage is done on minis, it's quite heavy, and it's heavy to do that on one account, let alone two accounts. And so, anyways, that's part of the kind of the reason why. I also think about it as like as we're practicing and we're trading right now, we're essentially building ourselves up to be ready to be able to trade live accounts or self-funded accounts, right? And so when you're trading live, you don't can't copy trade. At least most live accounts, you don't have the ability to do that, right? So again, I preface that because that's important. Like I mean, I've been moved live with my fund of futures. I've been moved live with fund of futures family. Tradeify, I technically couldn't because of the I think the basically based on where I live and the agreement, it doesn't work for them. So that's why I got my lifetime payout instead. But again, as I'm trading those accounts, I think to myself, like, well, I can't copy trade to those accounts, right? So why? If the idea is just kind of building the discipline, but again, I understand why people copy trade because someone did ask me one point, they're like, "Oh, Alan, if you had copy trade 20 of those 50K accounts up to 80K, you would have broken the record for Apex payouts." I don't, although that sounds great, I don't think I would have executed as well if I had 20 accounts. To be perfectly honest, I know that seems weird, but it's just a mental game, right? So. Going into next week, though, what I'm looking to do is I'm going to continue trading my 5 NMQs. However, I will copy trade some of my dormant TopStep accounts that I haven't touched in quite some time. So I'll copy trade instead. So that will be the theme for going into next week, is I'm going to still trade with 5 NMQs, but I'm going to copy trade. And we'll see where that leads us in this journey. In the calendar, I will still calendar only the one main account. I won't calendar the copied accounts, more so because I don't want to skew the data right now. I really want to showcase what this one account is doing. Because once you add in the other accounts, it's going to compound and it's going to look like my P&L skyrocketing out of nowhere, right? So again, the point isn't that. The point is, how do we trade consistently with one account, sizing properly, discipline, strategy, and over the course of time, as we fast forward this journey, when we get to more, whether it's 7 NMQs, 10 MNQs, 20 MNQs, whatever it may be, what does that look like next for us, right? So, anyways, if you hopefully again, if this is your first time, please drop a like, a subscribe. Mean a lot to me. It'll help me out, kind of broaden my reach in the community as I'm still, in the grand scheme of thing, a small-time trader trying to create a presence in the space and share what I know about trading, right? So, anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys. I will catch you guys around next time.